This is Whitley Strieber, and this is Dreamland. Let me wish you the joy of the season from the edge of the world. Christmas, the solstice, the 2012 moment, all of these things combining to call to us and ask us to move toward and look toward our higher selves and the beauty that we can bring into the world, and that is so much a part of each one of us. I love Christmas, and I'm so glad to be able to celebrate it here with you, especially in this incredibly wonderful and completely unexpected way. Linda Moulton Howe is with us with what has to be one of the most beautiful and completely surprising and unexpected programs we have ever presented. Ezkiels' wheel has returned. Of all the unexpected and wonderful UFO formations, this is really quite amazing. Linda Moulton Howe has made a discovery that is remarkable. Linda on earthfiles.com has got numerous sighting reports and also an extraordinary report from a man calling himself Shane Elam. And he describes not only seeing this object with witnesses, but also interacting with the presence or intelligence or beings that were within it or controlling it. It is a remarkable story. And afterwards, Linda and I engage in what I believe to be the single most important discussion that has ever been aired on Dreamland. It is a discussion about how our future and our contact process might or could unfold in this world. Don't miss a single word of any of this. And I am going to ask you, all of you again, to go deeper, to subscribe to unknowncountry.com. It's time. You need to learn this now. Okay. And now, as I say every week when Linda is on this show, one reporter who loves mysteries is radio's leading science journalist, Linda Moulton Howe. She's an Emmy Award-winning TV producer, documentary filmmaker, and reporter and editor for earthfiles.com, the world's most respected edge science website. Today, she has a special report for us on angelic light. And here she is from Albuquerque, Linda Moulton Howe.
Thanks, Whitley. In early September, I received a really haunting email from a man who's only 35 years old, and his name is Shane Elam. He comes from the ancient Elamites, a bloodline in Shane's family. Elam was to the east of Sumer in the Zagros Mountains of what we call today Iran. Susa was the capital then. The Elamites were one of the first cultures to adapt the Sumerian writing system to fit their own language. The earliest Elamite kings date back to almost 5,000 years ago. Elam was often at war with Mesopotamia's city of Ur. But today, in 2012, Shane Elam does planning and zoning in a private Oklahoma City, Oklahoma company that provides work for commercial real estate lenders. He is married, has 3 young children, and he sent me this email on September 6, 2012. Quote, Linda, I am a regular person with a college degree in business. I had a waking dream, though, and a vision, I guess you would call it. that those gyroscopes that you reported about over the Isle of Capri are the same that Ezekiel saw in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 16. I cannot explain this, but just know they are the same and that I play a part in it somehow. I had another vision encounter with a blue-gray light in my home that enveloped me. Ever since that night, I have known things, and I can't explain that either. I would like to tell you more. Thank you. And that gyroscope that he is referring to is in a sketch at my news website, earthfiles.com. It was illustrated by Ann Hall, a resident of the Isle of Capri, Florida, after she, her husband, and two neighbors watched the spinning lighted gyroscope near their homes on May 26, 2010. And in 2010, I had several reports from people, not just in the United States, but in other parts of the world, about seeing what they all compared to gyroscope of rings with lights around the rings. I asked Shane Elam if I could learn more, and on September 17, 2012, we did a recorded interview for Earth Files, Dreamland, and Coast Radio. Shane Elam is not his actual public name, but is used here at his request. He said the first high strangeness occurred 2 years ago, in September of October 2010. He was sitting at his computer desk working late at night, and suddenly the silence was broken by a sound close by that made him turn in his chair. He calls what happened next a life-changing event that has been followed by vivid dreams and intuitive flashes that made him reach out to me, a reporter, to see if anyone else out there in the world has encountered a dazzling light that leaves the haunting feeling that, quote, something big is coming in Earth's future.
And if you're listening to Free Dreamland, we'll return in just a moment.
The Christmas spirits. They're out to make things right. And to do that, they need to change the mind of a modern-day Scrooge, George Moore. Whitley Strieber's lifelong love of Dickens' A Christmas Carol will delight and enthrall you. Read it aloud. It's that much fun and that full of warm Christmas spirit. It'll thrill you and chill you and make you laugh and maybe draw a tear or two. The Christmas Spirits, just $13 from Amazon, and that's a Merry Christmas price for a hardcover book. An Unknown Country subscription opens a door into a world of mystery and information. Over 200 special interviews where our guests open the doors of their minds to our subscribers. A Dreamland archive going back to 2004. Plus Whitley's Room, where you will find his talks on The Key and The Path, his original communion hypnosis sessions, audio versions of many of his books, the inspiring talks on the Bible as you have never heard it discussed before, and above all, his beautiful, inspiring meditations. More special material for subscribers every week. $12.95 gets you 3 months of wonder, plus you can subscribe online or by mail. Get your mail-in form on our subscriber sign-up page.
Here now is Shane Elam from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
I remember hearing a sound, what I believe was maybe a thud, and I turned to look in the direction of the sound, and at first I felt my body go rigid, and then I began to see this white light envelop my vision. I was inside the light, and it was at first it was a misty, murky white, and then an electric blue spark started at like the center of my vision and grew outward, almost like a cold fire. In my mind's eye, it was like I was inside of something. I was enveloped in it. And the feeling came over me of total peace. It was like being connected into something. And I remember feeling, at first, a warmth come over me. It was almost like I could feel it pressure against my body, like a warm, silky liquid almost enveloped my body. I could feel it all around me, like I was floating a little bit. It was something that I've never encountered before.
Did you hear any voice outside your mind or inside your mind?
At the time, I may have heard, with a thud, I may have heard a whisper or some sort of sound.
If you heard a whisper, what do you think the whisper said?
I may have heard my name. It may have been like a sound in my head. I don't know. It was really odd. I had been going through some really hard times. I had just lost my job.
And that night or that day, were you thinking about suicide?
I had at one point.
I'm asking in the context of this astonishing light that filled your room and this tremendous sense of peace. Could there be a link between that and this contact by light?
I have thought so for a long time. I thought, okay, maybe this is the guardian angel, come to rescue me from the pit, When I had this experience, the feeling that I got was that everything's going to be fine. There was a meaning to life. I was in such awe of this feeling. It was life-changing. It gave me inner peace. It was almost like a being was cradling me in their arms or making me feel that my life was going to be okay. It was going to be all right. It was going to be better from that point on. It wasn't worth taking my life. When I came to, an hour and a half to 2 hours of time were missing. And I remember when I came out of it, I realized that I was weeping. But these weren't tears of sadness. These were tears of joy because I had just experienced something that I took to mean angelic. I felt like I had been visited by a higher power, like an angel, and that now my life was worth something, that I had work to do. And this message kept coming back to my mind. The sleeper must awaken.
Do you think that is directed toward you or toward humanity?
I believe that the overall message is humanity has been in a slumber for so long. Something is coming, and we need to be awake and aware.
Have you ever had any experience with, encounter, or dream about aerial craft and non-humans?
Yes, I did. The one that I had, following the blue light, I was reading some scripture. I was guided somehow to Ezekiel, the first chapter, and I was reading it, and I noticed the description of the wheel within the wheel that Ezekiel saw, and somehow I knew that it wasn't necessarily angelic, but that it might be something more than that. And the dream opens up with myself looking through a window onto a daylight scene with a man on the ground praying, and then directly in front of me and off in the background, there's a craft there, and there's someone there inside this craft. I feel like they're maybe a time traveler or some sort of other being.
Dimension?
Perhaps, yes.
So maybe time travelers or from other dimensions and not necessarily extraterrestrial from inside this particular universe?
Right.
What are you seeing in terms of the craft and beings that might be time travelers or other dimensionals?
It's a gyroscopic craft, and there's a sound. You hear a sound, and it's like a loud, almost like a helicopter sound. It's the wheels, it's the gyroscope moving, the thump, thump, thump sound. The two outside sets of rings are higher than the one in the middle. The one in the middle is down below the line of the two on the outside. So it's almost as if the front of the craft is dipped down. And if you can imagine a hovercraft, if the back end of it were higher up than the front of the craft, and the person I can't see their face. I can only see like an outline because there's bright light coming from each wheel. There are lights that are on each wheel, and as the wheel's turning, it creates almost like a constant light, but you can see a little bit of a strobe effect in them.
Mm-hmm.
As they're turning, it makes it sound like Niagara Falls and a helicopter. If you could combine the two, it's like a rushing water and a boom, boom, boom sound.
Can you get any sense of the beings inside of this gyroscope?
All I can see is a shadow, but I would say it's a large figure. He or she is larger than the Ezekiel-type figure that I see.
The Ezekiel-type figure is on the ground watching from the outside.
Right. Yeah, in a prostrate kind of on his knees, actually. The feeling that I get is that this being is making himself known to Ezekiel, like we're here. Maybe that life isn't everything that you see, that there's something more to it, and also that we're here to help you. I don't know, it's almost like the being wants to break through and make Ezekiel know that it's there and that it'll be back.
When you say that to me now in September of 2012 about this vivid dream that you have had, do you have any sense of a timeline going forward about when these time travelers or other dimensional beings that have come and gone on this planet, one being in this gyroscope, will return?
Well, what kind of brought everything up in my mind was I saw a story about a sighting in Florida of a gyroscopic vehicle.
That Earth Files in my report, right?
Yes, it was. Somehow I knew inside, I don't know, we all have this gut feeling that we use sometimes, when we are in a dangerous situation. It's fight or flight, it's adrenaline. And I knew, I just felt that sighting had to be the same thing that Ezekiel saw all those years ago. And I feel, a lot of people I've talked to feel there's something coming. And the fabric of space and time is getting thin, and things are coming through, and we are awakening.
And what is the end game?
I think that there's going to be a battle, and I feel like it's going to be between I guess we would call it good and evil. I get the sense from my dreams and from what I'm feeling, I get the sense that there are good set of beings, and there's also an almost evil set. And I believe that we're going to be shown something at some point. I think that we're going to have an oh my gosh moment or a wow moment. I believe that people are going to choose sides, and there's going to be, sometimes I feel like it might be a false flag event. I've had that thought before. The beings will be real, but it won't necessarily be what we're told they are. We might be told it's aliens, but I don't feel like it's going to be extraterrestrials. I feel like it's going to be either time travelers or interdimensional beings.
If the government presents time travelers or other dimensional beings to the planet as extraterrestrial biological entities, and they're not, that it's another layer of all of the lies, why would that occur?
I feel like the illusion of the extraterrestrials is something that they can try to manipulate and try to control. I feel like they'll be able to tell the masses that we're in communication with the aliens, and perhaps they want everyone to lay down their arms, or that we have to go somewhere, or that we have to make some sort of sacrifice. I feel like that the beings are actually coming to individuals. I don't think that they are going straight to the government. I think that's because they want to get rid of the lies. They don't want to be seen as extraterrestrials. They want to be seen for who they are, and that's possibly like time travelers or beings from another dimension. The more I think about it, it's almost like a forgotten knowledge. It's like a universal mind, perhaps like telepathic link that all humans share. Even animals have some sense of danger for an earthquake. We hear about birds flying away or animals running away, knowing something's coming. And I think that we've been dumbed down. I think that our ancestors, they didn't have all of this noise in their lives. And I think that somehow we've lost that link. And I think that somehow it's coming back. And it may be the fact that people are waking up to all the lies. For so many years, we've let Washington do what they do, and other world leaders do what they do, and continue to run things as usual. And I don't know if it's some sort of thinning of space and time. Something is causing people to wake up, and something is allowing us to link up into this link.
And since first reporting Shane Elam's light encounter and the sort of dream vision about Ezekiel's wheels, I have received literally several hundred emails on this subject alone from so many people saying they had never reported their own encounters with lights that changed their lives. Many said they had not even talked with their close family in fear of being ridiculed. And one of those letters came from Canada. Dear Linda, my experience was brief, just for 2 minutes or so. It was in early September 2011, a year ago. I was driving my car in the early afternoon on a nice sunny day along a main road in the city of Kingston, Ontario, Canada. I was about to turn onto another main road when I seemed to drive into, quote, a corridor of lightness and peace, close quote. It was not visible light, but rather a profound, all-encompassing sense of lightness that is difficult to describe with words. I felt total peace and a sense of absolute love. At that time, I was struggling with intense life issues such as a divorce, physical illness, loss of my home. The feeling in the car that day was something I have never felt before or since. In the midst of this indescribable feeling of lightness, I heard a voice clearly say, quote, everything is all right. Everything is going to be all right. There really is only love. And somehow in my heart, I don't know how, I just knew that was true. I had driven less than a quarter mile, and I remember thinking that I didn't need to be afraid anymore. And I wondered, why had I ever been afraid? And then I drove out of the, quote, corridor of lightness and peace, close quote. It was so noticeable that alone in the car, I spoke out loud saying, what was that? And I wanted to turn back, to get back into that energy. It was the most memorable thing that has ever happened in my entire life. I was unable to express in words the pure love and peace. I just know it was real and that there is another level or something other than this place where we are. I believe that Shane's theory about a battle between good and evil taking place is accurate. I have continued to have similar thoughts since that day in the car when I drove through that corridor of lightness and peace. And until I read Shane's account on your Earth Files website, I have kept this experience to myself. There is no one I know that I feel would understand. It helps to share. Thank you for making it possible for us to do that. And I would like to invite all Dreamland listeners who might also have had an angelic light experience to email me, earthfiles@earthfiles.com. I'll repeat once more. Think of a reporter who files news about the Earth. My email address is earthfiles@earthfiles.com. And Whitley, I think that we have touched some kind of nerve that in the planet today, in addition to all of the agitation that is violent and corrupt and stealing and lying, that something else is at work in individuals, whether it is a moment in a car on a road or in a dream at night. People are being encouraged and inspired about something that is coming that might change this planet forever for the good. Since first reporting Shane Elam's light encounter and dream about Ezkiels' wheels, I have received several hundred emails from so many people saying that they had never reported their own encounters with lights that changed their lives. But many had not even talked with their family, not their husband, not their wife, not their children, not their parents. And yet, these were life-changing events, and they were more afraid of their family and other humans ridiculing them than they were of the phenomena they did not understand. One of those letters came to me from Canada. It was in early September 2011, a year ago. The person was driving in an early afternoon on a nice sunny day on a main road near the city of Kingston, Ontario, Canada. That person was also contemplating suicide. And then suddenly, the car drove into a corridor of lightness and peace, is the way the writer describes it. And the writer then said, it was the most memorable thing that has ever happened in my entire life. I am unable to express in words the pure love and peace. I just know it was real and that there is another level or something other than this place where we are. I believe that Shane's theory about a battle between good and evil taking place is accurate. I have continued to have similar thoughts since that day in the car when I drove through that corridor of lightness and peace. Until I read Shane's account on your Earth Files website, I have kept this experience to myself. There is no one I know that I feel would understand, and it helps to share. Thanks for making it possible for us to do that." Close quote. And Whitley, I think that is the value of this dreamland. What we have done today is to give others the permission almost to share any other light encounter or something that others have felt that it changed their life and that it was something like angelic from their point of view.
Linda, the theme of this website, and in fact the theme of my public life and private life too, for that matter, has always been the same. Sleepers awake.
Right.
This is what he was talking about.
Right.
The ridicule, the denial, are part of the long slumber of mankind that, in fact, this to me is a signal that it will and must end. That statement that was made to Betty Andreasen Luca in ancient Gaelic that she reported during one of her hypnosis sessions was, "Children of the northern peoples, you wander in eternal darkness." That darkness is finally seeing some glimmers of light. And these objects are those glimmers, I think.
And it seems to me that the timing of what we are sharing now is so important when the governments of this world, and especially the United States government, seems to be taking a military position about something or some things in space or underground on this planet or underwater. There is a butting of heads in terms of intent of agendas, and it is confusing people. Is there something that our government is concerned about that is hostile, completely in contrast and contradiction to the experiences such as Shane Elam and the Canadian person and so many others who feel like that they have an ally with something that is out there that comes as light and may be directly connected to the divine field?
The visitors have shown me or given me one message relating to this, and that is that we are ashamed of our poverty. Our poverty. And when we come into contact with these more energetic levels of reality, if you will, they have more chi than we do.
Right.
We feel shame and we hide in denial. This is what it is to be fallen. And yet, if you look at the Beatitudes, there is one that is so wonderful. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's where we are. We have to surrender to the kingdom, but that does not mean that we have to just give ourselves to this thing, because it's really complicated. You and I both know the dark stories, and they're not untrue. We also know the bright stories, and I have lived through both stories myself. I have lived through them. I have lived through and been hurt by the dark side, and I have felt the feelings that he felt also.
And if we are dealing with, let's say, something that is going to come here on this planet to try to adjust the balance between, say, evil and good, maybe evil is too strong and good has to be strengthened, that when Shane and others say, Linda, something huge is coming, will we as humans take a position because of governments to fight off the angels?
Ha, what a great question. Well, we're fighting the angels off right now. What else was happening at Stevensville? And of course the government is frightened. They're frightened because their job is to control the world in which we live and to guarantee our safety. And they can't do either in this case because they literally don't know what they're doing. And nobody does. I'll tell you that it is going to be huge, but it is also going to be the single most personal thing that has ever happened to any human being who has ever been born. This will be the most deeply personal moment that has ever been known. And we are going to make choices. And some of us are going to go in one direction, some of us in another, and some few of us, and these are the ones who will eventually bring the whole thing into focus, are going to balance between the dark and the light. And you do that by learning the technique or the discipline of compassion for yourself, for others, and for all that are in this universe. Compassion doesn't mean being a sentimental fool. Compassion means having an open heart and a clear eye.
And one thing I really hope that humans do not do is get down on their knees to whatever shows up in light or ships, because that has been the past. And as Shane Elam has warned, whatever comes first might be a red flag. It might actually be something concocted by our government in order to pull the rug out from under, let's say, Middle Eastern conflicts or something else, by assuming that if a beam of light and perhaps a hologram that looks like a being is presented to the earth, that everyone will be overwhelmed and get down on their knees to the quote-unquote second coming of a divine being. I personally think that any divine being and any of the avatars of history, from Krishna to Christ, have never wanted humans in their evolvingness to get down on their knees to anyone. That is the entire point of coming into Homo sapiens sapien. We'll call it soulhood, where we really should be standing up straight and staring right into the eyes of anything that shows up in front of us.
Absolutely.
And using our own gut and soul to determine, is this an ally or is this an enemy, and not be afraid and not get down on our knees.
Because we are also divine beings. We're just turned away from that right now. We're not facing it. That's part of our sleep. You know, one time I've had one experience that I would say was certainly with a divine being. It happened in San Francisco many years ago when my son was a young boy, about 9, and we had gone to a conference there. We were in the hotel late at night, and I had been meditating, and suddenly standing before me was a young woman. She was familiar in her configuration. She was one of the so-called blondes, but the really more alien-looking ones, not very human-looking at all. A very flat but quite Nordic face, and wearing some clothing that was fairly unique, and that I think had something to do with the nature of her soul. It was more than clothing, like the Joseph's coat in the Bible, which is really his soul, the many-colored coat. In any case, she was there suddenly, standing before me. There was a terrific crack in the building, and it sounded almost like an earthquake. And there she was. And she was so unbelievably appealing. Not sexually attractive, that wasn't part of it. But my soul literally flew out of my sitting body and crouched before her in humility and praise. And you know what? She was embarrassed, visibly embarrassed.
Right.
Then this experience ended with my little boy coming into the room and saying, "Daddy, there's a flying saucer outside my window." So, yeah, let's try to not do that when this happens. I agree completely, because it'll just embarrass them.
Well, and it shouldn't happen. If we're going to truly be beings of intelligence and get above zero, as Michio Kaku says, of life on this planet, and join others in this universe, we have got to evolve past all of the superstitions and all of the sort of, we'll call it manipulated mythology and religions and boxes that have fed the power greed structure of this planet. This is perhaps the revolutionary time to get humans beyond that and finally doing a handshake with something else out on this planet. And I wanted to ask you, since the multicolored cloak has come up many times in various ways, the most outstanding to me and the most mysterious was the Dead Sea Scroll that was translated and finally was put out into the public in the early 90s. And this was about, I believe Enoch is on the ground, and in front of him are two beings, and one is identified as, I think, Michael, the Prince of Light, and the other identifies itself as the Prince of Darkness, and Enoch describes that one in the Dead Sea Scrolls as being the face of a viper, and that is a snake or reptile.
Reptilian.
Wearing a cloak of many colors. Now, you just define many colors as perhaps the reflections of a soul.
Yes.
But if there actually is something physical in terms of the reptilians that have interacted with this planet in which they wear capes.
In which they wear capes. That's quite possible, Linda, quite possible. This is always going to be more complicated. There will always be more dimensions to look at. And what we're going to have to do is see it as an adventure. But the key thing, and the thing that we can do, and why this has happened to us, why we were created, why we exist, is that we can balance the dark and the light. We can be the harmonizing element between these two forces. And the universe needs us. It needs this. It needs it very badly. We can do it. We're built to do it. Because we are three-brained beings. We're triadic beings in our nature. I mean, if you look at it scientifically, you have the limbic system, the emotional center, and the intellectual part of the brain. And that's repeated throughout our history in all of these stories of triangles, triads, trinities, triune goddesses, on and on and on. Because it is what we can do. Here's this riddle of the Sphinx. What has the courage of the lion, the strength of the bull, and the intelligence of the man? The courage of the lion is the good side. Those are the angels. The strength of the bull is the dark side. Those are the demons. The intelligence of the man sees past their appearances to their inner power. And when that happens, the Sphinx grows wings and soars aloft. And that, if we are able to do this correctly, is our destiny.
And my intuitive sense is that something's out of whack and that evil has grown too strong.
Oh, yes.
Maybe not just here, but throughout the cosmos, and that there is something necessary now about the finger of the divine field that must enter and strengthen the good, weaken the evil, or nothing will survive in this entire cosmos. And if that is true, then I pray that more angelic lights are going to encounter more and more people to give them the courage to keep going.
Understanding is essential. Thank you very much, Linda. This has been an extraordinary Dreamland. Good God, we've really gone far.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Dreamland. Be sure to tune in again next week. Dreamland is brought to you by UnknownCountry.com and our family of subscribers.
Our news editor is Ann Strieber. Our science reporter is Linda Moulton Howe. Our webmaster is Daniel Stiegel. And I'm your Dreamland announcer, Brian Arnold. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.